Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Descript. It's been some time since I've covered Descript. There's been a lot of changes over the last year, and let's face it, there's always an update to Descript every time you start it up. I like to joke that oftentimes when I get to my studio, I'll just start up Descript, let it warm up, let it download any updates, and then go into doing the work that I do with Descript. But all jokes aside, I find it one of the best tools for a creator who is working on certainly a podcast, audio podcast, certainly a video that accompanies that podcast, dare I say, video podcast. And it is just the simplicity, the ease of use, the all-in-one nature of Descript. Of course, editing with a transcript and not the typical timeline, although I still have some, affection to using the timeline, having, used it for many years. And I want to talk about some of the updates that I like and that I don't like with Descript in this sort of off-the-cuff, non-scripted video today. Hopefully I can get through this in one fell swoop without too much editing and without too much rambling. So I love Descript. We all know that. If you're watching this, you probably love Descript too, or at least you're considering using it. And primarily for the fact that you can edit your podcast or videos through the transcript. And I think that's obviously the biggest benefit, the staple to Descript, if you will. Accompanying the obviously the advantage to editing through a transcript is a lot of their AI features for cleaning up your audio or video in both things like removing gaps in your timeline, right? So pauses or breaks that happen, removing filler words. Of course, that's certainly a staple thing that drove a lot of people to use Descript in the early days, and that's been getting a lot better. But some of these AI features kind of fall short of expectation for many reasons. But certainly one of them for me is things like removing retakes and editing for clarity. These things sound really nice on paper, but I'm sort of reserved to use them in any kind of long form content. Like if I'm doing, for example, if I'm doing 30-second ad takes for Gravity Forms, which is the company I work for, oftentimes I'll do these 30-second, did I say 30 minutes? I meant 30 seconds, 30-second ad spots that are promoting a new feature or a new release or something like that. And I'll do it with either a script or sometimes I'll do it off the cuff like I'm doing right now. And, there'll have to be multiple takes. I'll say some things that I don't like and I'll repeat a lot of stuff and just say it and enunciate it differently. If I'm doing short form stuff, these editing for clarity tools and these removing retakes, okay, they make sense because I can see that content and I kind of know what I'm doing. If I'm working on a long form edit, like this particular podcast episode here is 40 minutes, one of the biggest challenges I have with using AI tools for this kind of work is I don't have a historical view of revisions. I don't know what the AI did. So, for example, you'll see here when I edit some of the stuff out of this particular transcript, I don't delete stuff. Like if I wanted to delete this, you could just hit the delete button and it's gone. The problem is as you're editing an episode or a piece of content, you might want to place that back, and you just lose it if it's deleted. So what I always do is I just strike through and just effectively doing the same thing, except visually it's still in the script. And that way I know, maybe I'll bring that phrase back or that segment back. I can do that really easy. And that's one of the biggest challenges I have with the edit for clarity and the removing retakes. And actually a lot of the stuff that I have some challenges with editing through AI, not just in Descript, but in other areas too, is I want to know what the AI did. I want to visually see that as a representation. So for example, you could highlight this paragraph of this transcript and I could, change it to red, and red could mean a certain thing. It could mean something that I'm leaving a comment on if I'm, working on a real long form story and I need to remember a lot of the reasons why I've shaped it the way I did, or if I'm collaborating with somebody else. I would like to see some visual representation that said, okay, here's what the AI did, and here it is in safekeeping. It can still be in the script, but just let me know that it's been struck through and AI modified it, and here's the one that AI kept. So if I want to be able to roll back or make those changes, I can do that a lot easier. But in any case, all of these tools inside of Descript, or all these features inside of Descript, have gotten a lot better over the last year. So if you were using Descript a year ago and you didn't like, let's say, performance, it was too clunky, it wasn't, moving that smooth, I would say that, I don't have any benchmarks here, but I would say that this is definitely a lot more performant these days and a lot smoother and quicker to use, for sure. So things that I usually do, which I've covered in other videos, is I'm usually coming in, I'm removing filler words, I'm selecting basically in any edit, I'm taking out and ums, and sometimes likes, but it depends on who I'm talking to. And then I'll ignore that and then remove all, and it'll run through the script and do that. A typical thing that I do just to set the tone. Then I listen back through the episode, and of course I'll keep those if they make sense, like if it's somebody stuck in thought, if it's a actually good emotional transition, I'll place them back in. But from like a starting fresh, I'll remove all of that stuff and then move forward. The point is all of their tooling has got a lot better in the UI. Having said that, one of the negatives that I do have, again, back to the sidebar, it's great that we have all of this stuff in the sidebar now. Layers, scene, project, elements is great now. This used to be tucked away in a little tiny drop down that you had to really, struggle with to understand like what it was that you were inserting. So this is great stuff. This is nice that this is here. Captions gets its own sort of view, and then the stock images and videos all get their own individual panel here. The problem, again, going back to the AI stuff, let's take a look. If I wanted to write a show notes, right? I'm just going to click this really quick. You can prompt it. I don't want to go too deep into analyzing the AI in this stuff because I'm trying to keep this video pretty quick, but I'm going to let that run. I'm just going to talk while this is running. And what Underlord is doing, which is their sort of umbrella feature for all of this stuff, is writing the show notes for this particular podcast. And it does an okay job of it. I mean, I'm not going to rate the response here, but it's nice that it gives me the chapter markers. It gives me a couple paragraphs. Great. The problem is it's just here in this little panel. And if I wanted to edit this, work on it, or save it, let's say I'm running with one of the greatest features of Descript is collaborating with others. If I wanted to save this and say, hey, check out the script that I had it right, what do you think? There's no archive for this. There's no other view for this. And this is that sort of longevity issue that I have with some of these AI features. Like, it's almost like, yeah, here it is, and you got to use it now or you lose it, or you forever lose it. And that's not really, efficient to me. Generally, what I'm doing is I'm taking the transcript, and because of that, and because I have fine-tuned other platforms like Claude to help me out, generally what I'm doing is I'm hitting publish, I'm exporting, I'm grabbing the transcript, I'm copying it here, and then I'm bringing it into another AI tool. I'm sure that's not what Descript team wants to hear, but just working with it and manipulating it in this little side panel isn't very fun or easy to do. I certainly don't want Descript to become a word editor too. Did you hear that, Descript? I don't want it to become a word editor too, but those kinds of features sort of just lend me in that direction where I need to expand on this content, this text. I need to edit it. I need to revise it, maybe share it with others. And that becomes, quite a challenge. Other features here are fine because eye contact, it doesn't really matter. You just click it, enable it, and eye contact will work. I found it to be pretty good. I've really only used it in a pinch. I've never used it for the full-blown, marketing feature set of it. It was like, oh, you can just read your transcript and you don't even have to look at your teleprompter, which I'm looking at right now. It's fine in a pinch, but I don't know if I would just rely on it heavily, at least this stage in the game, still with the beta tag, forever. Green screen stuff works pretty good. I've used that, again, in a pinch for certain videos. There's a lot of different types of videos you can make with Descript, which is really cool. But otherwise, all of this stuff, works fine. It's just that constraint of working with these AI features in the sidebar. Okay, I'm rambling, so let's get back to some other cool features that I do like. If we look at the elements feature. Like, it's really nice now that we have this ability, and we've had it in the past, but it's just getting more refined. Like if I'm bringing in an element, like let's say this rectangle, and I'm putting it across my frame or my scene, it's nice that now all of these sort of options, like let's say changing the color and editing opacity. I had that right. Let me just click out of it. If I edit the opacity, bring it back down, I can add effects to it. I can do animation with it. These tools now being here in the canvas area are really nice because you used to have, I don't even remember how the older versions of Descript did it. I think you had to set it in here and then you were looking to a right-hand panel, I think, in the past. I can't even remember. It's been so long, and I've forgotten how painful it was. But working with elements now on the canvas are a lot nicer. They introduced this layer feature, which allows you to come in and look at the different layers. There's only two here, just the original script and this rectangle that I just put in, but you can hide things and lock things. So that's great when you're trying to grab something, especially if you're making like an intricate transition. Maybe you have text in the the verbose captions running, and you need to click something, sort of like your typical photo editor. You can hide these layers or grab these layers or lock them. So it is a much better experience, although I would really love to be able to zoom in on this particular frame. And what I mean by that is we can change the layout. So I can go canvas only, and it gives me a broader full width view, but I'd really love to be able to zoom in on this canvas and enhance it so I can grab elements and move them in a more pixel perfect way or position. But it's cool that you can now do the canvas only. You can stack it where if you're trying to work and read the transcript and watch the video at the same time. This I think largely depends on the size of your screen real estate that you have, but this stuff is pretty nice. And while I'm here, if you're working on creating social assets for many different types of social channels, YouTube versus Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you can change these, the real estate, not the real estate. You can change the 9:16, 1:1, 16:9. The word is escaping me right now. I'm not trying to edit this. Aspect ratio. You can change the aspect ratio and modify this stuff, which is nice. It makes your workflow a little bit faster, and you are able to create more stuff with Descript from the same sort of project. So thumbs up on that stuff. Let me talk about the timeline because I'm still a fanboy of the timeline. It's getting better, but it's still not perfect. I thought at one point we were going to be able to separate the audio timeline from the video timeline because sometimes I am scanning for words that where I know in like certain parts of a project that I need to look for, and I'm editing through the transcript and looking for the words. Sometimes I also want to look for the audio wave form and punch in that way. Or I want to look for a particular frame of the video, and I want to see that on the timeline. I thought there was a way to detach this. I can't find it. Maybe it's because I've already removed filler words and it sort of starts to edit it. Maybe if I don't do that and separate it first. But I still find it a little challenging to navigate with the timeline. But I also realize that they've never really emphasized the timeline. But I'm a kind of a strange creator where I use many different apps. Like right now I'm using an app called Screen Studio, and I use Screen Studio when I'm trying to do one-take screen grabs without a lot of editing. If I'm doing heavy tutorials, screen recordings, I'm using ScreenFlow. Rarely do I use Descript unless I'm trying to do something super quick to send to somebody else. But I don't use Descript screen recording tools because I want the, and this is a different topic, but I want to be able to, number one, I need to be editing from the timeline with that. I need to be bringing in a lot more assets, zoom in, punch in, certain effects when I'm bringing in text transitions and all this other stuff. And Descript is just not at the level of a ScreenFlow for editing that kind of content. And Screen Studio is just a lot quicker and smoother, but certainly the worst to edit with if you put these things on a chart. So that's a long ramble, but the timeline stuff, yes, it's getting better, but it's still not 100%, where I'd like it. So I'm always using the different tools for navigating the timeline. I think it's very important that you learn the keyboard commands, or at least the different tools we have to navigate this timeline. Moving assets around is not bad. Like if I try to grab this, like it's very slow and clunky. You can see that it doesn't even really line up with your typical timeline expectations, and that can be pretty aggravating. So you really have to approach the timeline as, using it as like that final edit. Like I want one rectangle to go across the entire script, grab it, transition it all the way through. Or if I'm bringing in a caption, I want to bring this caption in and make sure that it goes through the entire timeline. And if I need to edit that stuff out, I'm grabbing this and shrinking it down. But there's still like a little bit of a lag. It's still not super smooth. I would really love to see them update the performance to editing the timeline, editing your project through the timeline. Okay. Stock images, I think I mentioned this already, but that's something it's great at Descript, that it comes with Descript, and you can pull these things in and make really more robust and more verbose projects with a lot of these assets that you can pull in. I think it's a great way to add to your project, especially if you're doing short form stuff. Never a huge fan of like these long form videos that are always cutting in like memes and edits and stock footage. Like I get that's the thing, but I'd rather not. But it is nice to have this stuff here, especially if you're making short form stuff. Okay, so lots of positives, some gripes here, but overall, editing and working with projects are a lot better now, especially creating scenes, much easier. Really love the tool. Before I forget, if we go to automatic multicam, if I'm doing video edits that have two separate tracks, simply clicking on automatic multicam to jump between active speakers is fantastic, and it's almost becoming a staple, like removing filler words is, because it's super easy, clean, and for the most part, it gets it right. I would like a way to transition some scenes and like select scenes and add maybe a different layout across specific scenes that I select. But otherwise, like this is pretty good. Same thing with saving templates, like saving layouts and reapplying those to projects. Fantastic. That's a big thumbs up for me. But the last gripe that I'll talk about, and this is the one that really gets me the most, is I want to be able to select multiple projects and delete multiple projects. I can understand why they don't do it. I think technically from a company and an AI-driven company, they want to retain a lot of this content, and maybe they're training this content that we're saving in the cloud to their models or whatever. But it drives me nuts that I cannot just get stuff out of here. You can do it on a one-on-one basis, but I'm going through so many projects and deleting them individually. It's like a 2 or 3 click process, right? So if I select this, right click, delete project permanently, or don't delete, it's not a fun process. I want better file management with Descript, because these projects are also being saved locally if you're syncing them locally to your device. And that takes up a massive chunk of content. Like this is just a lot, and I want to be able to manage that. Now you can detach it locally from your computer, but one of the things that I love about Descript is I use it on multiple computers. Use it here in my studio, use at home, and syncing it in both places. Like if I'm going to work on a project now, if I go home and work on a project, it syncs it there. I got to detach it over there. It's just a nightmare. I want to be able to delete this stuff permanently in a bulk fashion. Right? Give me typical file management. That's like my biggest request right now for Descript. Give me proper file management. Other than that, everything has been fantastic. One thing I didn't hit on, because it's largely showing off the same thing, is Descript works really well in the web browser. So I have an older M1 MacBook at home where Now I'm editing through the browser, and I don't know, it's probably using local resources, CPU resources to do some of the work that it's doing. But mentally, I feel like, oh, I'm using the power of Descript's cloud, and it's being more efficient, especially on this older M1 MacBook, which, by the way, with only 8 gigs of RAM, still does a fantastic job, surprisingly. Like, why did I spend $2,000 plus on this new laptop? But, it's not as fast as this, but it's still very good. Pretty good. It's still pretty good at the end of the day, which is a testament to Descript, but also probably a testament to Apple in their hardware, especially in the older M1s. So that's how I've been using Descript. That's what I've liked about Descript as we head into 2025. They're always updating. I really, really like that they're always updating, and they haven't let this thing sort of coast. Do I love that it's like leaning more into video? As somebody who wants, to refine more of the audio side of things, like, for example, studio sound is great, but I don't use it unless I have a guest that has really, really poor audio. But I would like to bring in like other plugins or for audio, or like better mastering effects. Like, it's doing like an okay job for making bad audio sound good, but fine-tuning audio still isn't there, right? And I'm not an audio engineer. I see a lot of my peers who are audio engineers who do some fun stuff, and you just can't do it with Descript. So all in all, still a huge fan of Descript. Really love it. Check it out if you haven't. I don't know if they have an affiliate link. I'm not affiliated, but it is a fantastic app. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the podcast setup. I always have some fun stuff coming out there. Check it out at thepodcastsetup.com. We'll see you in the next video.